welcome everyone to a special edition of our CWN Leading Ladies podcast. Today we do have a leading lady with us from the Central State Office for Croats Living Abroad out of Croatia, Ms. Maja Perić, who's an associate in the department dedicated to those of us living in the diaspora outside of Croatia, and in particular with the group responsible for projects and programs that are dedicated to us in the diaspora, those that we organize, and certainly those that we work together with the Central State Office in partnership to execute around the world. Maja, welcome. Dobro nam došla.
Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you and to guiding everyone who's interested in our public calls, in our public tenders, to get to know them with the procedure and to explain what is needed to have a full application and to apply for a project or program that can be granted from the Central State Office for Croats Abroad.
Excellent. So as Maja mentioned, right now we have a grant competition that is open, the javni poziv, which is different from the glavni poziv. So there's two different levels. And so if you, like us, have ever attempted to complete one of these packages, you know the frustration that it induces. One of the great things that the ured has done is heard our calls and has been kind enough to translate the documents into English and in Spanish and other languages to make it easier for people to apply to these grant competitions. And I can tell you from personal experience, once you've been through it a couple of times, it does get easier and it begins to make sense. What we're hoping to do today, though, is to equip everyone with a great shortcut of information to make it a less frustrating process and to hopefully have your program, your project, and ultimately your grant application be successful by meeting the criteria that the Central State Office needs, whether it's by law or by procedure, and for us to understand how to navigate when perhaps the required documentation doesn't exactly match what's available in our countries. There is a workaround, and we're going to hear about all of those wonderful things today. So Maja, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. So why don't we kick off with the architecture? Please explain to us and differentiate the types of grant competitions that are available. What kinds of funds are available and for who are they dedicated towards?
Okay, so first of all, it is important to say that the Central State Office for Croats Abroad has exactly 2 calls during the year for people who are living outside of the Republic of Croatia and belong to the Croatian diaspora or Croatian immigrant organizations. One is called the javni natječaj, or the public tender, which is running currently now from the 2nd of September until the 2nd of October. The second one is called the public call and is actually published twice a year. The first time in February and the second time in October. So if you don't succeed in applying for the big public tender, which is running now, you have the possibility to apply for the public call in 1 month.
So we do have 3 opportunities really.
Yeah, actually 3, but we have,
right,
as we call it, 2 calls, the javni poziv and the javni natječaj. And
now, what's the difference in the pot of money that's available? And is both the javni natječaj and glavni poziv, is it available to everybody in the diaspora both times, or is it parts of the diaspora?
So the javni natječaj, or the public tender, is especially for Croatian immigrant organizations, while the public call is for anyone. So actually also for people who are belonging to the Croatian immigrant organizations, as well as for people living in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and as well as for people who belong to the Croatian minorities in neighboring countries. So Important is to say that there is a difference in the price, in the money, the grants that are given to those who will succeed in receiving a grant for their project or program. So the public tender, which is the big one, the big one, is running until the 2nd of October now, has a pot of 1,200,000 euros. The
Okay.
smallest amount you can receive for your program or project is 1,000 euros, while the biggest amount is 50,000 euros. It depends, of course, on which kind of program or project you are applying with. For the public call, we have smaller amounts, and it starts with 700 euros, and the biggest amount you can receive is 20,000 euros. And as I mentioned, for the public call, anyone can actually apply. There is also a difference. For the public tender, the big one, which is running now, only organizations out of the Republic of Croatia who belong to the Croatian diaspora and emigrant organizations can apply, while for the public call, also organizations in Croatia who are working with or doing programs and projects about Croats Abroad can apply. In this public call that will be published next month, at the beginning probably, there is also a difference that not only organizations can apply, but also individuals. So people who want to apply with a specific project that is not related to an organization, to a small business or an educational institution or a non-profit organization. And the third category, besides the organizations, the individuals, are the so-called vulnerable individuals. This means that people who are living in specific and very hard or complex socio-economic conditions outside of the Republic of Croatia can also apply. So the most important thing is for this big one that is running now, the eligible participants are organizations, small businesses, educational institutions, etc. And if you are not sure whether you are eligible for this application, of course, you can always contact us. Another important difference between both calls is that for this public tender, the application has to be delivered through the corresponding embassies, while for the public call, you have to apply through an online system where you upload all of the needed documents.
So Maja, at this point, I have to ask, oftentimes there is a bit of frustration from the part of anyone applying to say, why isn't it consistent? So if we're already applying to the public call online, why can't the public tender also go online? Why the difference?
This is an interesting question, and important to mention is that we want to have good conversation, good communication with every organization outside of the Republic of Croatia, and especially for us who are dealing with the questions and issues and programs and projects that Croatian immigrant organizations want to provide. And important is for us this communication, and of course the embassies that are actually working and are operating in the countries where our Croatian immigrant organizations, where our Croatian groups, the people, the Croatian diaspora lives. They are actually most of the times even better informed about what is going on in these different, let's say, societies, Croatians who are related to Croatia, but it's because of this communication and wanting to learn more about how they are living that it is very important for us that the embassies are actually connected with us and can provide us and help us this way, because the communication between the Croatians there are actually much more easier, let's say, via the embassies than with us. And this is, we try at this point to make the communication much bigger and to actually connect the Croatians outside of Croatia with us on through this way.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So let's talk about the documentation process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we recommend anyone who wants to apply for this big public tender, which is until the 2nd of October, to go to our website where you can find the call, the announcement for our public tender. And we have some documents there. We provided some documents, and as you already mentioned at the beginning of our podcast, the documents have been translated this year into English and into Spanish, because we are aware of the fact that it may be an issue to understand what is specifically needed. So we recommend anyone who wants to apply to, first of all, read the text. You have the original one in Croatian language and in English, and then to go on with reading. And on these instructions, you can actually find out which specific documents you will need to apply and to have a full application for us. So there are actually 6 documents that are needed, 5 or 6. Important is to mention which ones are needed to be already in original form, and which ones don't need to be in original. So first of all, we need you to fill in the application form with the project description. And the application form you can find also on our website under the instructions and under the official text and the announcement, with all the descriptions of how this public tender will go on. And it is important to mention that this document has to be handwritten, signed by the authorized individuals, representatives of the organizations. And this one has to be original. So we have to accept the original, not a copy or anything. So this one has to be original, very important.
And no digital signatures, right? It has to be a fresh hand-signed signature on the original document in the package. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And the second one is actually the form in which you will describe the budget. You are the amount of money you are going to foresee to have your project or your program actually operated, let's say it like this. This one has also to be an original. So no copies, no digitally signed documents, just a fresh hand-signed document. And then you have the CV. This doesn't have to be an original document or anything. You can fill it in and print it out or just send it by email. I will come back to how you can actually deliver all the documentation to the embassy, but let's have step by step said which documents are needed for a full application, for an acceptable application, let's say. So the third one is the CV, as I just mentioned. The fourth one is a proof of registration. And important is to mention that—
Sorry, proof of registration where?
In the register. So we have to see that you are actually, that your organization is active for at least 1 year. This is related to some laws that are provided in the Constitution of Croatia. So it's important to know that your organization has to be active for at least 1 year since the opening of, or the publishing the announcement of our public tender. So if your organization is established after the 2nd of September 2023, unfortunately, you will have to wait until next year, or you will maybe actually fulfill the needed
criteria,
expectations or requirements for the public call that will be published in announced in October this year. So this is very important to know, that we need to see that your organization is actually active for more than 1 year.
So just to clarify that, so that in our parlance is we have to prove that we've existed and have been registered and created and formed. So whether that's an incorporation document or an association organizational document. Now, the rules in Croatia are always that these documents have to be kind of pulled or recognized within 6 months of the submission of the package. Now, in Croatia, that's much more common. But for example, in many common law countries, you don't get a new certificate of existence. You have your original incorporation documents that might be dated 5 years or 10 years earlier, but you can print it out, for example, more recently. So does that create a problem in the package consideration?
No, for us, it's important that we can see from this document a specific date of establishment.
Formation, okay.
Yeah, so if your documents are 10 years old, we actually know from that you were actually active more than 1 year, that you exist for more than 1 year.
We meet
So
the criteria. Okay.
yeah, indeed.
Okay.
So the the document that it's needed, still this is also a copy. So just to remind, there are, at the moment, the mentioned documents, only the first two, the forms, have to be original for now. So the fifth document has to be a copy or of a valid statute, only in case if you cannot see the activities of your organization from the document from the registry, actually.
Okay.
So if it's mentioned what the activities of your organization are from the registry document, then this one is not required. But you can, for sure, if you want to be sure and you have the statute with you, of course, you can actually just attach it to your documentation. And if you are not sure, you can always ask us. And the sixth one is the third document that has to be an original one. And this is the certificate of no ongoing criminal proceedings, or the criminal record, as it is called in certain countries. It is very important that this is an original one. So an original one or a certified copy, as in that it has to be certified from the notary or another responsible state institution, etc. But it is very important for us that this one is either original or certified copy. We don't accept copies or anything else. It may be also an electronic document. We know, for example, in the Republic of Croatia, we can actually receive these documents in 5 minutes from e-građani. So we know in some countries, we are aware of the situation that when you start the procedure, it can take a week or 2 or 3 or even 4 weeks or even a month before you receive the original document. In this case, we are very aware of the situation, and we wanted to tell this too in the podcast now. In this case, if you see that you started the procedure before the 2nd of October and you will not receive it on time, it is very important to communicate this with the corresponding embassy and to tell them and show them, send them a proof with your with your documentation that you actually started the procedure. The most important is that you started it before the end of the 2nd of October, so that we see this is actually something we would say force majeure. So we know that you as an individual are not the reason that you don't receive it directly, that it's just because of the administrational procedure from your country you are living in. So we take this into mind. This is not a problem. We just know it.
Giving you proof of the request of the criminal security check is sufficient. And then when the original arrives, to supplementally send it in.
Yes, then you can send it afterwards. But the most important is that we see that you started a procedure before the end, before the deadline ends. So this is the most important, and that's actually it. What considering the documents you need to deliver to the corresponding embassy to have a full or acceptable application.
So just to clarify that point, Maja, thank you. So it says in the documents that we can send it in by email, but we must follow up with a hard copy package because you need to see these original documents. So just to clarify then, if let's say I'm waiting for documents or proofs or things, and I get the email in on September 30th or even October 1st or 2nd, my hard copy package isn't going to get to the embassy possibly until a few days later. Is that okay? Or does everything have to be in before the deadline?
So the most important thing is if the only problem is that you are waiting for the criminal record
or any documents,
then you have to send it before the 3rd of October. The 2nd of October is still an eligible date to send in your documents. But there are actually 3 options to deliver your documents. The first option is to go personally to your corresponding embassy and to hand in everything. The second option is to do it by post, by sending it by post, or the third option is to send it by email. But as you already mentioned, then the applicants have to send the originals from the forms, the project description, the budget, and the criminal record have to be sent in original too. If you send it via email, they have to send it via post or go to hand it in personally. Considering the question you had about what if I'm going to be too late, actually the only document you may be waiting for before the end of the deadline is the criminal record. So you can actually hand in the description, the project description form, you can hand in the budget form, you can hand in the registry, you can hand in the CV and anything else. If it's only the criminal record,
Right.
as we already mentioned, you have to send a proof of request. The most important thing is that we will actually see when someone sent it. The most important is to send it before the 2nd of October, because we will actually check up on the post stamp. If you send it by postal mail, let's say, we can actually see on the post stamp if you send something in the time of the public tender running or not. So most important is to send it on time, because we actually unfortunately cannot accept applications that have been sent after the 2nd of October.
Understood. So the postage has to prove that it was sent before the deadline. So it's not the arrival, it's the sending in terms of the hard copy. So that's really important for us to know. Just a clarification. You mentioned notarization for a certified true copy of the criminal check. Now, there has been some confusion when we're talking about the two most important documents, the program description document and the budget proposal. Is it sufficient that an authorized person from the applying organization sign the document, or does that also have to be notarized, that signature?
This signature doesn't have to be notarized.
Okay, so it does not have to be notarized. That's really important for us to know.
Yeah, indeed. So you don't have to spend money where it is not needed. The only thing, if you decide to not send us a copy of the criminal record, the certified copy has to be notarized.
Understood.
Considering these first two forms that have to be original, you don't have to notarize them. The most important is that the eligible person, so the representative, the president of your organization, is going to sign the document. And most importantly, don't forget to put your official stamp. If your organization has a stamp, don't forget to put it on those both documents too.
But if we don't have a stamp, that's okay.
Then it's not needed, indeed.
Okay.
Of course, not needed.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of information, very valuable. So great. Now we've figured out how to put our package together. We've submitted it. We got it in on time in all the ways possible. Talk to us a little bit about the decision-making process. So open the curtain on what happens at your end when you get this onslaught of probably tens of thousands of applications and wonderful programs. Give us some insight into what that decision-making process is like.
So our office has an office committee that will actually look at every single application that is acceptable. So the ones that fulfilled these requirements and send us every needed document. So they will actually take a look at every document, at every application, and they will actually take several key criteria on what way they will decide who's going to receive a grant and who's unfortunately not receiving it. First of all, they look, of course, at the completeness of the application. As I said, you have to send us every needed document. And if there is an issue or something, you can either contact us before the deadline and either send us a proof or some explanation where you have issues or where you had issues during the application procedure. Then they will also look at the relevance and quality of the project to see if it is in line with the Constitution and which are in line with the strategic goals of the state office and the Croatian government. And then, of course, the financial sustainability, they will actually, our office expects a responsible use of the funds, and we actually want to see very qualitative results of every project and program we are actually granting. So it's only logical that these are the criteria the office actually takes into mind, this committee takes into mind when they are actually considering all the received applications. And this procedure can take about 1 month or 2 months. So maybe it's important also to mention that as every year, when the public tender ends, so when the deadline is over, the procedure to consider all of those documents, the committee taking time to actually consider every application in detail, because we put a lot of they put a lot of effort, and they want to have as most qualitative projects and programs funded as possible. This takes, of course, some time. So we actually hope that everyone will have a little bit of patience. Of course, it will take a bit of time, and we expect the conclusion to be in December, like every year. So we don't know exactly when it will be, but as we can see from the previous public tenders, we know that the conclusion will actually be published in December. So
the announcement does come just as a lovely Christmas gift, almost.
The conclusion will be December. So this is important to know, that when we receive so much of these applications, they will actually try to consider it as fast as possible, but we know these are very qualitative applications, and they want to give everyone the chance, and they want to give every application the chance to see which are the best ones. So this is also the reason that this is like kind of a competition, and that everybody who actually applied with a complete application will get the opportunity to receive a grant or receive additional information why they didn't receive a grant now, and some let's say some tips to apply for the next one. So it's very important to know that the committee is doing their best. And once again, it's important to know that applications only for this one, for a public tender, should be sent to the embassies. So not directly to the state office. The state office will receive all of the applications from the embassies afterwards, and they will be handed over to the committee that will decide who is going to receive what kind and how much for what kind of project.
So thank you for that. So just to clarify, there may be people who think that because we're sending it to the embassy, that the embassy then is doing some pre-filtering of projects before it goes to the central state office. Can you comment on that? Are they obligated to send all the projects they receive to yourselves, or is there really a filtering process?
There is no filtering process. They will receive every application, and we will receive reports afterwards from the procedure they went through with receiving all of the applications. So we will know whose applications were incomplete, whose were complete, but at the end, the committee decides who is receiving the grants and who is not receiving the grants. So there is no pre-filtering at the beginning. The only thing you depend on is yourself, the completeness of your documentation or the incompleteness of your application. That's the most important thing to take into mind. So
excellent. Maja, this has been incredibly informative. Thank you so much. Do you have any final tips that you'd like to either share or reiterate or highlight before we finish up this conversation?
As I said, the most important thing is, as we would say, better is safe than sorry. So if you have any questions, or if you are anything, if you have any issues, don't hesitate to contact us or your corresponding embassy, and we will provide you with the best information and with the best instructions we can. But we recommend anyone to read the instructions, and as I said, and always contact us during the public tender now, or if you have any afterwards, if there is still something not clear from what I explained now. We are here for you. We want anyone to have the feeling that you can communicate with us, because we are here for you and we want anyone to be satisfied afterwards. That's the most important, and for our cooperation, of course.
Of course. And I have to say, dear viewers, audience members, that from personal experience, the team is incredibly responsive and very knowledgeable and very supportive, and functions with logic. So as Maja explained, if you're missing documents or you're unsure, more is always better than less. But if something's unclear, the team is extremely responsive and, as I say, very supportive to help you stick handle completing your project, or if there's an issue with some documentation, to, with explanations, accept what you have, if even if it's not exactly what's outlined as a request. So please feel encouraged and welcomed and invited to establish some communication with the team, because they really are here to support us. So Maja, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure you guys are getting excited for the avalanche of wonderful applications that will come in, and interesting projects that you'll get to review and hopefully give the green light for execution and participation. Thank you to you and all of your colleagues at the Central State Office for Croats Living Abroad for all that you do for us, and for being there and for supporting us. And we look forward to hearing the grant nominations and applications and announcements come out in December, and then subsequent ones as well. We wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, and good luck to everyone.
Thank you.